Wheels?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, I renewed my AAA membership and got a triptych
Nice.
to prepare for our towns and cities show.
Okay.
So I'm just mapping stuff out, how it looks on the map for the cities and towns show.
Okay. So did they give you updates on where there's construction and where there's road closures and things like that?
Oh, crap. Screw that. All right. I'm going to use my phone.
Okay. We'll just start the show.
Vinyl Peeps, we've got a great show for you today. Vinyl Peeps, you like that?
I love it. You just keep rolling these out.
It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Get your maps out.
We're going to do a little traveling.
Yeah, we're going to do some traveling.
Get your compass. Get your sextant.
Ooh.
Yeah. I guess we're going to jump on a sailboat.
Yeah, we're going over the big sea.
So tell us a little about what we're doing today.
Well, we were trying to come up with ideas for shows, and Jason and his lovely wife, Rachel, brainstormed, and they came up with the cities and towns idea. I love it.
I do too. And when you start digging into it, it's amazing how many there are. Little factoid here, do you know what the top 2 cities that have been written about in song are? I'll give you 2 guesses.
Well, there's top 2, so I get 2 guesses. That's good.
No, I'm going to give you 2 guesses because you're not going to get them right.
I'm going to say Manhattan.
New York, so that's 1. Yep.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And L.A.
You got a 50%. You failed. London is actually number 2.
That was the other one.
Yeah. But if you think about it, New York, Manhattan, you hear songs about it all the time. London, Clash, London Calling. I mean, I think we kind of take for granted sometimes the subject. We hear the song and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and we don't really think about it. But when you dig into it, it's really interesting to see the places that bands and artists write about.
Yeah, cities and towns are maybe as popular because you start going through. I mean, at one point, I was just pulling out records out of my collection and looking, and it's not hard to find artists who've written about cities and towns.
No, because I think, maybe next to love songs and writing about another person, you're writing about your surroundings. You're writing about where you are, where you've been, or where you're going to.
And some of these are legendary.
Absolutely. So I think that you should start us off with your first place, and I will grab the Vinyl Ventures record from the stand.
So the first one. Oh, jeez. Now this thing, this is The Residents, and this is one side. Buster and Glenn. Here is the other side, Duck Stab. And of course, it's 2 records in one. Woohoo!
Gotta love that.
What else would you expect from The Residents? You've got this guy stabbing a duck. He's in an apron. Looks pretty ominous, really. Anyhow, Duck Stab leads off with Constantinople.
Oh, nice.
Constantinople. Most of you I don't even know if most of you probably know, but the
TMBG.
TMBG.
It might be Giants.
They Might Be Giants covered the song,
and that was like their first huge hit.
Yeah, it really took them into the well-known stratosphere. Yeah. And their version's a lot different than The Residents.
Yeah.
The Residents version is probably irritating to many.
So thus why you have it.
Yes. I mean, I love The Residents, and it's Here I Come Constantinople, I Am Coming Constantinople. That's not much different than The Residents singing the song.
Oh, that's funny. So is this 2 EPs, or is it an LP and an EP?
I don't know exactly how it's categorized. I think it's, well,
Because I think this at the bottom, it says the 7 songs on the Duck Stab side of this LP, so it's an LP,
yes.
were previously released as an EP.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
if I could read, I could answer my
Yeah,
own questions.
it was a separate EP, but now it's one LP with 2 distinctive sides.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can look at this. I can look at this side more than the other and say, well, there's a record Wheels would like. And I
Yes.
don't even have to know
Yeah.
what it is or who it is.
Yeah, if I saw this side only, I would buy it for this side only because the guy stabbing the duck
Yeah.
is brilliant.
I don't have any Residence stuff.
It's not something that anybody really seeks out.
Mm-hmm.
They're different.
Yeah.
It's art music. It's
Yeah.
like art film. It's art music.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. I love it. Have you had this for a long time, or is this a recent find?
No, I've had this for a good bit because Constantinople, I love their version of that song.
Yeah.
And it is like nails on a chalkboard.
So you just like the stuff that is challenging, not
It's-
necessarily the stuff you can put. I mean, you do like atmospheric,
Yeah.
like relaxing stuff too, but like the stuff that is just begging 90% of us to just turn it off.
Yes. I'd love to have a listening party and put on the Residents and see how many people were left at the end because there wouldn't be many.
That's great, man.
They can be grating.
What's the Buster and Glenn? Is the dog Buster and that a picture of Glenn?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. That's what I thought. Now that I have never seen that, never seen it, never heard of it.
Oh, the Constantinople?
Well, I've heard that song, but I love They Might Be Giants.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Residents did a different version of it.
Well, I'll put a link in the description
Okay,
and
cool.
probably get some people upset or
Beautiful.
happy.
Awesome.
You're up.
All right. Well, I'm starting with one of my favorites, the Jayhawks, XOXO. This came out in 2020 and right in the heart of the beginning of COVID. First off, I love the cover.
I was going to say, I absolutely adore this cover. I would probably buy it for the cover.
Yeah, I mean, it's very distinctive. Obviously, a woman hanging out, laying on the floor and going through her records, which we've all done. I usually don't have a skirt on when I do it, but, there are those times. The reason that I brought this is because the first song, This Forgotten Town, and this is kind of a Jayhawks return to form. They had done a couple records, and they never necessarily stayed in the like Americana folksy thing. They kind of got a little more electric for a few albums, and then kind of veered off a bit. And this is kind of like their return to form. And I was like waiting for this to come out, and it did. And I believe, if I can check it. Okay, so no, this isn't the one, but I do have an autographed copy of this
Oh,
from all 4.
so you
of
have
the
2
band members.
copies.
Yeah, because I ordered this upon release, and then the autographed copy became available, and it was like maybe $10 more. So, but This Forgotten Town starts the record off. Dogtown Days, which is another town. Living in a Bubble, Ruby, Homecoming, Society Pages, Illuminate, Bitter Pill, Across My Field, Little Victories, Down to the Farm, and Looking Up Your Number. This is a fantastic Jayhawks record, and almost any of them I think I could recommend as an entry point because I think they're all that good. Now, there are the early ones, obviously with some different people in the band, and though people usually look at those as the real Jayhawks album, then Gary Louris kind of took the band over and took it in his own direction. But I think that any of them are a good place to start with the Jayhawks.
The whole art design of the front and back of this is just brilliant. It looks like it's straight out of the 60s.
It does. I mean, all the way down to the woman's hairdo and kind
Yeah.
of her clothing and stuff.
Yeah. I love the name of it, XOXO.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Round type sticker, which as we all know is bullshit.
Verboten.
But other than that, yeah, it's a great record. It's one of my favorite. They're just one of those bands for me. Everybody's got those bands that can
Check all
almost
the
do
boxes.
no wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. What's your next?
Well, I'm gonna keep it weird. The Dead Kennedys. We've talked about the Dead Kennedys many times, and this is Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables.
Love it.
And the last song on the second side is a cover of the Elvis classic "Viva Las Vegas."
It is great. It is
And
great.
Viva Las Elvis is great, but I love their version of Viva Las Vegas. It's just everything the song should be. It's been used in films many times.
Has it?
Just because I think it was used in the Hunter S. Thompson
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm almost positive it was used in that
Oh, I'm
film.
sure.
Because really, the Dead Kennedys and the way that song goes kind of captures that whole what was going on with Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting too because is Jello like an anti-drug guy?
He may be kind of straight edge.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression.
And he may
I've
have
gotten.
turned into being kind of straight edge.
Yeah.
I don't know that he was always that way,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I think that is an assumption about a punk band.
Yeah.
That's so, just against the grain that people would assume that. But I think they also might not assume that he's as smart of a dude as he is.
He's a very bright guy with a lot of opinions. I
And
think he would
not afraid to share them.
Yeah, if you take him to a bar, you're going to get in a fight with somebody.
Oh man, yeah, I love the Dead Kennedys. I kind of got into them through a friend who was a real punk guy in high school.
Yeah,
never really listened, and then that was at the time when Jello was full force into his spoken word stuff. So it was kind of hard. It was kind of a weird like foray into the band because I'm getting introduced to the artist and the art at the same time. And usually you have a little time to like dig into the art before you learn any of the interesting things about the artist. So 80 to 81, huh?
Yeah, this was their debut album.
Yeah.
And they don't have a whole bunch of releases, but I mean, if you're going to check out the Dead Kennedys, this is the one to get.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of, let's see if I can read the songs.
With the texture on the record, it makes it
it
very
difficult.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kicks off with Kill the Poor, which is brilliant. Forward to Death. When you get drafted, let's lynch the landlord. Let's lynch the landlord. Drug Me, Your Emotions. Chemical Warfare. California, Uber Alles.
Uber Alice, California.
I Kill Children. That's kind of scary. Stealing People's Mail. That's always fun. Fun Land at the Beach. All Ill in the Head and Holiday in Cambodia.
Classic.
So
Absolute
a couple of states and a city. How about that?
Country, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just covered
Yeah,
a bunch
a country, a state, and a city.
Yeah, you can.
Trifecta.
Yeah, you got the threefer, man. That's a good one. That's a great one. I love the. I think that this is a photo of riots in L.A.
Yeah, the L.A. riots in 67, 68.
Yeah. With the cars on fire and everything.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah. I mean, they're not afraid. They're not bashful about. I mean, Frankenchrist is another one.
Yeah, they're definitely a shock band. I mean, that was their goal, is to shock.
Well, I mean, at a time when those types of bands are becoming more and more popular, post-punk era, you had to do that to kind of get your name out there, and they really did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. What record company is it?
Well, they bounced around by were on a bunch of. This was Cherry Red.
Okay.
and they were on a couple of different labels, because I know they were on. I think they were on the Residence label, Alternative Tentacles.
That's right. You're right. That's a good one, man. I dig it. Well, full disclosure, I pulled out Little Criminals today because I thought I Love L.A. was on this record, and it's not. But it just so happens that the song that starts this record out is called Baltimore. And
Nice.
We're talking about Randy Newman's Little Criminals. I got a little blood on my hands. And Randy Newman, this is his 5th album, by the way. Randy Newman is one of those pop stars that is almost an anti-pop star. I mean, most people now know him as the composer and the guy who scores movies. But, weirdly, in the 70s and 80s, he was kind of a pop star. I Love L.A. was one of his big songs. And on this album as well is his biggest song, I think, Short People.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, is it a novelty song? I mean, there's such a dry sarcasm to most of his music.
That's a perfect description of his music, dry sarcasm.
And, maybe not just sarcastic, but also kind of shoehorning in a little social awareness. You look at his catalog, you look through it, you listen to the songs. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So obviously he's a very talented musician and composer. His voice, some people are on either side of the fence about it. He's always been one of those dudes that just stood out. I remember listening to music when I was growing up and scratching the hell out of my mom's Beatles records. You're welcome, Mr. Russell.
Bam!
Boom! Got it in there. And I would hear him. I mean, you'd be listening to pop radio or top 40 radio, and Randy Newman would come on. You'd be like, what is this?
What is this guy talking about?
So just for his distinctive sound and being placed in the middle, kind of that singer-songwriter era that he was.
Yeah.
But also a pop star, kind of, and now a composer and, a very respected musician. So very interesting dude. And I Love L.A. is not on this record, but Baltimore is. And it's a good song. I gave it a recent listen. So, yeah. And
I always enjoy his stuff when I hear it.
Yeah.
I don't have anything.
Right.
Because I keep looking for stuff at a reasonable price. You don't see a lot of it out in the wild.
No, and I don't think he sold a million. I don't think he sold millions and millions of records.
Right.
So I think that the people that were fans of his
kind of held on to him,
bought the records, and they still have them.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about this is that the lyrics are on the back of the record, and that doesn't happen a lot.
No.
So not only do you get the track listing, but you get the lyrics. So Randy Newman, Little Criminals. The song is Baltimore.
Nice.
What's your next one?
Next.
Oh, by the way, Keith and I just worked in Baltimore for a week, so that's a little tie-in there.
We've got tie-ins out the wazoo. Speaking of tie-ins.
Okay.
We love tie-ins.
We do. And callbacks.
So.
Oh, yes.
This is Glenn Campbell's greatest hits because this is the only one I have Wichita lineman on.
So there's Wichita.
There's Wichita. There's Galveston.
By the time I get to Phoenix.
And by the time I get to Phoenix.
Yep.
And just to keep things, tied in, here's By the Time I Get to Phoenix.
Oh, yeah. I've got that, too.
Yeah.
I've got the Capitol 75th version of that, and I've got an original pressing of that.
Oh, yeah, I think that's an original.
Yeah. I mean, Glenn Campbell, going back to what we were just saying about Randy Newman, I mean, originally Glenn was the session guitarist that played on everything.
Yeah.
He was in the Wrecking Crew, probably played on 1,000 songs, and then became a pop star.
Became a pop star, and really starting in the late 60s, he had a TV show.
Oh, was that in the 60s?
Yeah,
Okay.
It started in 69.
Okay.
the Good Time Hour on CBS.
Huh.
And I'm sure it was on Sunday night. All those variety shows were on Sunday night or Saturday night.
Yeah. I don't remember that because I would have been, well, I wasn't born then.
No. Well, that's why you don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I know that they showed it in reruns, but I just never caught it. I remember my first memory of Glenn was when Rhinestone Cowboy came out and just exploded.
Oh,
everywhere. Yeah. And that's when I was just like a little country bumpkin.
He wrote some hit songs, that's for sure.
Yeah. And just a fantastic, most people don't know it, just one of the best guitarists.
Yeah.
So R.I.P. Glenn.
And wasn't it funny that Wichita Lineman, the Guns N' Roses, covered that song at the concert?
I don't know.
Such a weird song to cover.
I don't know if funny is the word I'd use.
It was bizarre.
I mean, we don't need to go on a tangent about the Guns N' Roses thing, but it's like maybe instead of playing for 3 hours, be a little more selective about this. I mean, I'm sure part of it is wanting people to feel like they've gotten their money's worth, but they've been back together sort of for 7.5 years now.
Yeah.
We don't need a 3-hour show. Give us a 2-hour show. And if you're saying I want to play for 3 hours to make people feel like they're getting their money's worth, I think they'd feel like they were getting their money's worth if you played for 2 hours and didn't play songs that just made people go,
huh?
What? So anyway, yeah. I love the Kmart hype sticker.
Yeah,
too,
I kept it was in the shrink. I usually don't like shrink, but I thought this was important.
Well,
Kmart.
you can do like I do and cut that out of there and put it in.
Well, but I mean, it's so pristine.
It's iconic.
Yeah. Kmart.
What year?
$5.98. Look at this. $5.98 for the original release,
Mm-hmm.
and I got it for $2.
Man, you did a good job. What year did this come out? I don't know, but you can write to his fan club on the back.
Yeah, you can write to his fan club.
Yeah. A lot of records, I'm going to guess the 70s, right?
Yeah, for the greatest hits, sure.
Isn't it strange how a lot of album covers were these extreme close-ups of people?
Yeah.
It's just an interesting choice. But I mean, you see it. There's Glenn.
There's Glenn just staring at you.
Yeah. Looks like he got the upholstery from his grandmother's couch and made a shirt.
It's a good shirt.
Yeah.
And
that's a good one, man.
Another Glenn on the back.
I almost grabbed Glenn because Wichita Lineman.
Yeah.
And I have family in Wichita. So.
Oh.
Yeah. See, there's
and you didn't.
And there's endless tie-ins. Well, like we said at the top of the show, not when you were mapping out our sail across the Atlantic,
Yeah.
but at the beginning of the actual show, what I had talked about was there's so many. You know what I mean? You end up having to parse them out because there are so many. But that's a good one, man. I'm going to have to go home and listen to Glenn Campbell while I put my house back together tonight.
Yeah, this is a greatest hits that's worth having. I mean, because there's so many great songs on there.
And he's such a great musician. Billy Joel the Stranger, probably top to bottom my favorite Billy Joel record. Just a powerhouse. The cover is weird as hell.
Can I do a review? What is going on?
Yeah, well, maybe don't spoil it. You can do it next time. I have no idea. He's got the boxing gloves because he used to box. There's, I don't know, the mask that they all wear.
Kabuki mask, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just creepy as hell. That's
and
like
the striped sheets.
It's like a V for Vendetta mask. Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on. And then you have the guys on the back with Phil Ramone, the producer, at a restaurant. This guy's looking at his beer. I mean, it's
just very different.
Yeah, there's oodles and oodles of questions unanswered with this. But the reason that I brought this is because probably my favorite Billy Joel deep cut is Vienna.
Ooh.
And it starts out the second side. And it is just a great song. I think I was surprised that my wife knew this song, like when we first started dating. And I'm like, because I was listening to it or something. She's like, oh, I know this song. And I'm like, how do you know this song? She's a little younger, or more than a little. But apparently there's a version of Vienna in the Jennifer Garner movie 13 Going on 30.
Oh.
And that's how she knew the Billy Joel song, even if she didn't know it was originally Billy Joel.
Huh.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Interesting.
But this is, like I said, this is a powerhouse of a record. I mean, this is right when Billy was just, on his ascent. This came out in 1977. I would have been 3. And you still, obviously, he hasn't done new music since 1993, at least new music, pop music. But there are standards that he plays on this record.
So which release was this for Billy?
Wheels, I'm glad you asked, because it's his 5th record. This is his 5th record, released September 1977. His previous album, Turnstiles, had kind of not sold that well, and this came out, and it just, it starts out with Moving Out, Anthony's song, The Stranger, Just the Way You Are, huge song, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, which might be where they are.
Yeah, that's it. It's a scene from an Italian restaurant, because look at the family. Yeah.
And then you got the air duct back
Yeah.
there. Nice job, photographer. Vienna, Only the Good Die Young, She's Always a Woman, Get It Right the First Time, and Everybody Has a Dream. Like, the last 2 songs are lesser known tunes, but still just great. I love Billy Joel. I've been fortunate to see, I think I've seen him 5 times.
Wow.
And I heard that because he's got that residency at Madison Square Garden, I've heard that that's going to end next year. So he's basically playing monthly shows there and has been for years. But that's going to end next year. So I think my wife and I might try to make it to see one of those last shows. But yeah, Billy Joel, always a favorite. And he's also often compared to Elton. The thing that's different between him and Elton is Billy writes the songs. Billy plays the piano for the songs, writes the music, writes the lyrics, sings. So he's like, a quadruple threat. Elton writes the music, Bernie writes the songs, and Elton plays. But still, they're both fantastic. They're both 2 of my favorite artists that I hold very dear just from when I grew up. And they're both J names.
Wow. A J double threat.
Yeah, look out. Since
we're in Vienna, we're going to stay in the same continent.
Okay.
And we're going to...
Is that Africa?
Is
this Toto?
We're going to fly on down to London.
Oh, my gosh.
And talk about the werewolves of London. Why are you bleeding, by the way?
I cut my knee doing some home repairs.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
We're going to have to fill out a form.
I think so. Yeah, we'll have to. Hey, go ahead and print those off, Keith. We'll have them signed, and one of the union bosses will have to initial it. So tell us a little about Warren's Excitable Boy record.
Excitable Boy. So
I've always loved this picture of him just like down here in the corner.
The song originally started out as a joke between one of the Everly brothers and Warren.
Really? No
and
kidding.
They were the gist of it was they were encouraging him to create a song and a dance.
Nice.
And I guess he wrote the song in like 15 minutes.
And it's like the most identifiable piano part ever, I think, in a song. You hear that and you know it.
And the song, I don't know if because of the song, the film came out, but the song spawned a movie.
Did it really?
Yeah, The Werewolves of London.
Huh. Or American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah. This is his 3rd record. This was released January 18, 1978 on Elektra.
And you know who plays drums on this? Mick Fleetwood.
Does he really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Lawyers, Guns, and Money. What a good record. Johnny Strikes Up the Band, Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner, Excitable Boy, Werewolves of London, Accidentally Like a Martyr, Nighttime in the Switching Yard, Vera Cruz, Tenderness on the Block, and Lawyers, Guns, and Money. So what I was going to say was Waddy Wachtel is the producer, but Jackson Browne is also a producer on this record. That's great. I think I was going to grab this, and I was certain I had it. I don't have it.
You don't have it?
No. Isn't that weird?
Ah.
And I love Warren Zevon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he's another one of those great songwriters like Randy Newman.
Yeah, just like off the beaten path. Like how, I mean, honestly, I gained a new respect for Warren when Blues Brothers 2000 was being filmed, and Paul Schaefer left the show to film and score that album or that movie. He couldn't be involved in the original movie because of his contract with NBC, I think. Anyway, for that time that he was gone, Warren led Dave's band, and I gained a whole new respect for him at that point. He's another dude, you know, had kind of a troubled star, had some demons, and battled those his whole life, and obviously died way too young. I think he's been gone for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, he reminds me of somebody like Harry Nilsson, who everybody on the music inside loves the guy and goes to the guy for advice.
Yeah.
But he just never really made it huge. This now, Where Was London was a top 40 hit,
Isn't
which
that crazy?
That ain't bad.
No.
That pays the bills.
Oh, yeah. And it just keeps coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think Kid Rock did a song that sampled the piano part recently. And I think in that same song, he did Sweet Home Alabama. So he's got a 2 for, or a 3 for going there. But yeah, Warren's music, I think the longer we go, the more people are being introduced to it. And he definitely deserves some respect. What an interesting dude.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, you don't see a lot of Warren Zevon albums in the wild either. I mean, it just doesn't pop up that much.
And I look in the Z's a lot because, you know, I like a little guy named Frank Zappa.
What do you got? Where are we going? Oh.
We're going to go to the little West Texas town of El Paso with Marty Robbins' gunfighter ballads and trail songs. Now, when I was a kid and I was like neck deep in country music, I knew this song. I knew El Paso because it like had a life of its own, right?
Yeah.
I think most people have heard it and they at least know the song. They may not know it was Marty. And I've talked about this record before too. All of these are kind of those cowboy songs, and just super identifiable. And I had an old copy of this, and this is like a newer press. I think I got 3 or 4 years ago. But this kind of gets the jazz treatment on the back with like a bio.
Absolutely.
Like new liner notes, and the original liner notes are right here. But all of these songs, Big Iron, Cool Water, Billy the Kid, 160 Acres, They're Hanging Me Tonight. I don't need to go through all of them, but El Paso, when I think of songs that kind of set the stage in a place, it's like at the top of the list because, you know, it's a story song.
Yeah.
He's not talk singing, sorry, Wheels, but it's a story song. And there's just so much like packed into that, like 2.5 minutes, under 3 minutes. You know, he sets the stage, tells you where he is, what's going on, you know, tragedy ensues, and then it's the end of the song. It's amazing. The guys that can write those story songs in such short bursts are super impressive to me.
And this is one of those albums that is highly desirable.
Yeah. It's
I mean, even by rock and roll people.
Yeah.
People just seek out this album.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I love putting it on just to kind of as a palate cleanser sometimes. Yeah. I think I've probably listened to this one 2 or 3 times since I got it, and I love the picture of him.
That's a great cover.
Drawing his gun on the cover, and there is a second volume of this album.
Oh,
and I do have that. I think it's more gunfighter ballads and trail songs or something like that. So, but yeah, it's a good one. I'd recommend it to anybody that, you know, just kind of likes a little. It's really not even country music. It's almost what would you call it? Like
trail songs.
Yeah, but it kind of has a mariachi feel. Has like a southwestern kind of feel. And you're right, a trail song
Gunfighter Ballads.
and a ballad.
I like that they have the songs all
Right.
on the front cover.
Yeah.
And they're easy to read.
Yeah, me too. And I do believe that that's the order of them, because sometimes they'll print songs on a jacket that aren't in the order. Sometimes
Yeah.
they'll alphabetize them, or I don't know what the hell's going on there. But yeah, and it's also in stereo, Fidelity.
Ooh, that
So,
makes it better.
It does. It does. Marty Robbins, Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. Go get it.
Okay, well, we're going to stay in Texas.
I love it.
You like Texas?
I think I know where you're going.
How? You knew it had to be the
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
ZZ Top.
I almost brought this one.
Tres Hombres.
It's a good record too, man.
And that's my ringtone,
Yeah.
LaGrange. So.
Yeah, it's a good one. Waiting for the bus. Jesus just left Chicago. Beer
Another
drinker.
one, Jesus just see.
Yep.
I get two
Two
for
for-
the price of one.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to charge you.
Beer drinkers and hellraisers. I mean, this is like old classic ZZ Top. This
Yeah.
is the record that I always go to.
And LaGrange is probably my favorite ZZ Top song.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it. I just love that song.
Yeah. Well, it's just weird enough that of course you do.
It's a little off kilter.
Yeah. I love it. What's
And in the fine Texas tradition.
of course, I think there's a
Oh, I forgot this.
there's a meal. They
Yeah.
have a meal in the gatefold of this. A
That's
nice
right.
like Tex-Mex meal.
Look at that. It makes me
Oh.
want to go to the Mexican restaurant tonight.
Well, it's Friday.
I may have to.
You can stumble over and stumble back, John.
Yeah, have a beer and a margarita, and I'll be happy.
I just think that it's so interesting. I mean, this if there's a picture that gives you that like southwestern Texas feel,
Yeah.
it's this one. And
Oh,
and-
yeah.
and my version has that too. And then you have the singing lady in the picture there. Yeah, that is awesome. And it's like you said, such a great record. This is my favorite classic ZZ Top record.
I love it quite a bit.
And yours is in so much better shape than mine.
It's not an original, but it's an older press.
Yeah.
It came out in 73.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, 73, because LaGrange was still, I mean, a bunch of the cuts from this album are still getting played on the radio in the 80s.
They're still getting played on the radio now.
Yeah.
They're classic radio like linchpins.
Yeah, but I mean,
almost.
in those days, it wasn't really classic rock, right? I mean, that's how they started
Yeah.
billing themselves as, but they were just linchpins.
Yeah.
Everybody knew those songs, and they were, 10 years old.
Yeah. Did we talk about Tres Hombres on the 1973 show? I can't remember if we did or
We
not.
may have.
Yeah.
We may have.
But this is one of those standout records. Like if you go back, you're talking the huge stars of the day, Alice Cooper, ZZ Top, bands like that. Their music is still getting played all the time, every day, on what is now known as classic rock radio. But it was, at the time, it would have been AM, right?
Yeah.
AM, then top 40, then it's moved into classic rock. So, and these guys are still out there doing it too.
And the first time they played the song in LaGrange, Texas, was at a Fayette County Fair in 2015.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. I mean,
That's a cool little collision.
if you're from LaGrange,
Yeah.
and they're playing the song at the Fayette County Fair, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, that's awesome.
they're talking about us.
That's so cool. They're one of those bands that has just survived the test.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes just passed away about a year and a half ago, but they were original members until then.
Yeah.
I mean, just 3 of them. But yeah, and I have heard interesting things that not everybody got along great. So, maybe separate tour buses or whatever, but you do what you gotta.
There's a documentary about them and how they got together. It's very interesting.
Is it the little band from Texas?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah,
but-
it's really good.
And just one more thing. They have a live album, I think, that they recorded just before Dusty died. That's them at a little club, just the 3 of them. like, and it's supposed to be a really, really great live album. So I'll try to track that down and maybe do a impromptu record review.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that's a good choice, man. My next one, you've got to talk when you're knocking your records over. When you're talking about songs about cities, the first one, what's the first one that pops into your head?
Manhattan.
Yeah, but what song?
I don't know.
New York, New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But not the Frank Sinatra version, the Ryan Adams version. This came out in 2001. This is Ryan Adams Gold. And I'll tell you what, I know that there's been a lot of like bad press for Ryan in the last few years, but this guy is a master songwriter, a master musician and singer. And that song, New York, New York, opens this up. And it's just fantastic. Let me bring this up. I have it right here. It's his second record, September 25, 2001 on Lost Highway Records. This remains Ryan's best-selling album, certified gold in the UK and almost platinum here in the US, which I'm sure it's made it there. But I love the cover.
Good Night, Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah. Yep.
We got another one.
There's another one. Doesn't it kind of seem like those more folky Americana type artists do a lot of songs that are places, cities, towns, and yeah.
Yeah, because they're telling stories.
Yeah.
They're more story songwriters.
Right. But this is a great album. If you haven't dug into Ryan Adams, I would suggest this one. He used to be in a band called Whiskey Town, which used to pop up on like some vinyl sites a lot. I don't see it anymore, and I'm pretty sure that Whiskey Town record is expensive and hard to find now.
Yeah.
But if you dive into Ryan Adams, this is a great one to start with. He had a backing band called the Cardinals for a while, so those records are really good too. But the more recent record of his, I think, is about 4 or 5 years old now. It's called Prisoner. Oh, it's about his breakup with Mandy Moore. Oh. I mean, and it is a heartbreaking record, but just beautiful from beginning to end. And isn't he one of these guys that like he's like a contradiction, because it seems like you hear a lot about him before the bad press. Seems like you hear a lot about him, but people don't know anything about him.
Yeah. He's a prolific songwriter.
Very much.
I mean, he's released a couple of albums in 1 year before.
Yeah. And he also did a version of Taylor Swift's 1989 album and released it. And and he loves that record.
Yeah.
And his version of it is just fantastic. So if you get a chance to check Ryan out, I think anything that he does is good. But yeah, this is a high point. And starting this record off with New York, New York, and then the end of the third side, Good Night, Hollywood Boulevard. We got a twofer.
Nice.
Yep. Ryan Adams Gold. I love the cover too, with like the upside down flag and his red, white, and blue shirt.
Beautiful.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we did mention the great state of California.
Mm-hmm. The Republic. Oh, yes.
So, The Doors, L.A. Woman.
I love this record.
Yeah, and this is there's so many things to like about this album. I love the rounded edges.
The die cut.
Yeah, this reticular. Yeah. It's not really reticular. It's like a die. Yeah, see? Yep. There, look. And change their pictures. Look at that. Woohoo, black and white. Now we're in color.
So cool. So cool. Yeah, recorded in West Hollywood. My wife and I went out there for our anniversary a couple of years ago, and I saw the hotel room where Jim lived when they were recording this, and the recording studio was right next to this little bike tour place. So,
an L.A. Woman finishes off the first side, a 7-minute, 49-second song.
Yeah,
almost 8-minute long song.
Yeah, and it's so good.
Yes,
I know that there are some people that like can take or leave the Doors. But like when you listen to their later stuff and hear songs like that and where they were going, It really is a shame that he passed away.
Yeah, and this was probably one of their best-selling albums, and I mean, Love Her Madly. But everybody knows "L.A. Woman" is a Doors song.
Yep.
And then "Riders on the Storm," another 7-minute song, ends outside too.
Yep.
I mean, they have these two big songs in length, but they end out each side. It's kind of just peculiar marketing.
It is. But you kind of have a threefer here, right? Because you've got L'America, which opens the second side. And then you've got The Wasp, Texas Radio.
Yes. And the Big Beat. I love that song.
And I know you love that song. That's like your favorite Doors tune. It's just a great record. These guys, I've said it before, but these guys, when you hear them, it doesn't matter if you've heard the song before. When you hear them, you know it's the Doors.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of bands from that era that are that instantly recognizable upon hearing.
No, and I mean, nobody has duplicated that sound. I mean, it's just a different sound.
Yeah.
The organ.
Oh, yeah. Ray Manzarek.
Yeah.
Just the band, just super talented.
Yeah.
Kind of weird collision of people, and it turned into, what is an iconic 60s group. It's
absolutely
amazing. One little story, when Bill and I Bill Hayes, friend of the show, went into the studio and recorded one of his songs about 2 years ago. There was a 19-year-old kid that was an intern at the studio. I don't know if I told you this. And we were recording this song, and it's a little blues song, and we're like, well, you know what, we could really use some like honky-tonk sounding piano on this. And this 19-year-old intern sits down at a Fender Rhodes and starts playing Riders on the Storm, the whole thing. The whole intro, I mean, note for note.
Wow.
Well, he might have been 20.
Yeah.
He was so
But he was young. Yeah.
And he's just screwing around in the studio when we're in between setting some stuff up. And I go up to him and I'm like, how do you know that? And he goes, it's Ray Manzarek, man. And he's like, he was a music student at IU. But it was like being in the same room of someone that can make that sound. I mean, it gave me goosebumps. It's given me goosebumps talking about it, but it gave me goosebumps. And that is such an iconic intro to a song. It might be one of the best. There's Another Show.
Iconic intros.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one for sure.
Okay.
And this thing came out in 1971. I mean, Jim would die shortly thereafter, but
yep. Such a it's just one of those things that kind of makes you wonder what could have been.
Yeah. If they could have held it together.
Yeah.
Because Jim was out there.
And in the 27 Club.
Yes.
Yeah, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine.
He was only 27 years old.
Because you think of him being older.
Yeah. Yeah. With the beard and the long hair. Yeah. That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
We almost had a duplicate because I was this close to
I
grabbing that.
I knew you would probably think of it, so
yeah,
I had some other options.
The 50th anniversary of this just obviously came out 2 years ago. I never got that 50th pressing, but I had gotten like a more recent pressing from, I think it's Rhino, because it's WIA. So it is Electra, right? Yep. With the classic E logo.
Yeah, the classic E.
Yeah. That's just such a great record, man. Robbie Krieger and John Densmore.
Yeah, Robbie and John
are still
both left.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, what do you have?
Well, I'm going with a band name for this one.
Ooh.
It's a little band. Now, come along with us on this little story. It's a little band from Scotland that became famous in the 70s, and they're named after a place in Michigan in the United States. And I remember they had a TV show that was on Saturday mornings. And this is at the time where they had the plaid and the enormous like bell bottoms. I just loved the Bay City Rollers when I was a kid. And
I love the jumpsuit.
Yeah.
We need jumpsuits.
Well, we could do that.
Yeah.
Do you want to go with plaid jumpsuits or?
I'm okay. I like the plaid. The plaid
Highlights.
fringe.
Yeah.
Highlights. Yeah.
That's a good idea. maybe we do that. Now, are we going to button them up, or are they going to be
No, you got to have them. You have a zipper so you can
the chest hair
decide.
is just hanging out there?
Here it is.
Yeah. So this is Dedication by the Bay City Rollers. And
See, he's messing with the zipper right here.
yeah, of course he is. What else would you do? This has Let's Pretend You're a Woman, Rock and Roller, Don't Worry Baby, Yesterday's Hero, My Lisa, Money Honey, Rock and Roll Love Letter, Write a Letter, and Dedication. And this came out in 1976 in September, and it was the band's fourth original studio album and the first new album to be released in the wake of their enormous worldwide success in early 1976. So everybody knows this band for Saturday Night, which is a great song. And, maybe we do a Days of the Week show too.
Yeah.
Huh?
All kinds of ideas spurning from this.
Yeah. But I loved the Bay City Rollers. They were like one of the mainstays when I was a kid. Just put that 8-track in. Because my parents, our stereo had an 8-track, a cassette player, and a record player all in one.
Oh, yeah. That's the way they were.
Yeah.
The cassette player was a expensive add-on, I bet.
Yeah. And I remember we had an 8-track cassette player in the station wagon, and Radio Shack, I can't remember what year it was, but they made an adapter where you could play a cassette in that. So you could stick it in there and put a cassette in the outside of it and play it. World-changing technology. But yeah, Bay City Rollers, man. And I'm pretty sure I got this a long time ago. I think we got...
oh, look at that.
We got like a live performance picture in the gatefold. Look at
That's
all
an
this.
impressive gatefold.
Yeah.
Look at all the people up here.
I know. It's like the Beatles. The Baytols.
The Baytols. The Bay City Rollers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. What's your next one? I'll put that in there later.
I was kind of entertained
I
watching
know.
you
You were
struggle.
just keeping your mouth shut, just watching. Yeah.
Next up, our good old buddy who kind of kicked off this whole beautiful stage in our life of Jay and I digging for vinyl. Good old Bob Seger.
He's the one that brought us back together.
Yeah.
After years occasionally seeing each other for work. Bob Seger is the piece that pretty much Vinyl Ventures sprang from.
He's the piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. We should get Bob on the show.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
That would be a good get.
Oh, I'm going to work on that. Tell me about Beautiful Loser.
Beautiful Loser. I love this cover.
I do too.
Just because it's, he's just kind of posing with this top hat and
baton or
cane. He's just got the whole, he probably has on taps too.
You know who I think of every time I see this record cover?
Who?
Leon Russell.
Yeah.
I'm like, did you break into Leon Russell's wardrobe?
That's hilarious because, he even kind of looks like Leon.
He looks a little like Leon with the long straight hair and the facial hair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this thing is packed with songs. It is packed. And the reason I brought this is because of Kathmandu.
I thought the same thing. After we said let's do cities, and I remember Kathmandu. I don't remember it because of just being on the radio or anything, but when the movie Mask came out, with Cher and Sam Shepard and Eric Stoltz, that song is huge in that. That's like one of his favorite songs in that movie. And that's like the first time I'd ever heard it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny, Seeger songs pop up in movies, but they're just so iconic that they really fit super well with whatever story's being told.
Right. Yeah. He's obviously from Michigan, from Detroit. His career took a long time, to get off the ground. And it kind of goes back to that, what we've talked about before is, in the 70s, you had a safety net as an artist. Record companies would see that promise in you and help develop you. And, you know, if your first record, second record didn't do so great, that was okay. I don't think that bands and artists have that
No,
safety net
it
anymore.
doesn't exist anymore.
And thank God he did.
Yeah.
Because he's not my favorite artist, and it's not someone I go to a lot to listen to, but there are songs of his that like are absolute bangers that I really, really love. And if I had this on vinyl, I probably would have brought it today.
Yeah, and you know, I could have brought the single for Kathmandu, which the B-side is Nutbush City Limits, which is also on this album.
Is Thundercat Pussy up there?
You've never been to Nutbush? Have you been to the city limits of Nutbush? Because you can go to the city limits, but you can't go in.
I'll tell you what, tain't somewhere I want to go.
Oh boy. Hey, we wonder why we can't get women on the show.
Oh, we don't wonder. So did you mention the other tunes on this? Beautiful Loser, Black Knight, Kathmandu, Jody Girl, Traveling Man, Mama, Nutbush City Limits, Sailing Nights, and Fine Memory. Yeah. He's, did you say what year this was?
Yeah. 75.
75. I mean, he was just like...
In the 70s, Seeger was selling out arenas.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you would have been, you would have been listening to radio at that time. Right?
Oh, he was not somebody... Because he was one of the staples of rock radio, so he was not somebody that... He was almost like the enemy for me.
Right. Just so popular, so ever-present that you kind of went
it's
the other
like,
direction.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's a great one. It's a great cover. You know, the one thing about old Bob Seger records that I have noticed, they're all pretty worked.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at least cover-wise. Now, I'm sure that you wouldn't have this if the vinyl wasn't okay. But that just tells you how often people listened to their Bob Seger records.
Yeah, now I'm curious, because I bought this early on.
After we went on our little quest.
Let's see.
Capital EMI. Oh, that's the wrong side.
Oh, I'm going out the wrong side. No wonder.
Are you going for Nutbush or?
It's not the greatest. Lots of fingerprints, but not scratched.
Yeah, not. It
looks like it's been underwater.
Well, it could have been.
Yeah, so it's not. I think it played okay, but yeah, it'd be one that I would replace.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I like it. You can't go wrong with Bob Seger.
No.
So, my next one, and sorry, it's still in the condom. It's a little album that we may or may not have talked about before. It's called The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Have you heard of it?
I think so.
Yeah, by a guy named Kay West. No,
Kay West.
By a guy named David Bowie. And like probably the second song I thought of when we talked about this is Suffragette City. And this is, we did the deep disc dive on this, and Suffragette City in the story of this, if it is a themed record, kind of is one that doesn't necessarily fit with the other stuff. But man, it's such a great song. I mean, it is one of those David Bowie songs that if I hear it, I listen to it. If it comes on and I listen to it at the beginning or halfway through, because I like the break part where he says, "Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am." It's just, it's like an iconic David Bowie record. And the 50th anniversary of this came out last year. I have the 50th anniversary press, but it wasn't in with my other Bowie stuff. So this is just probably one I got 5 or 6 years ago, Parlophone. We don't have to get into too much detail about it.
No, we've talked about this album
it's
a ton.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because artists talk a lot about cities, the names of cities, but then city is also
A big part. We could have done just a show on the name city.
Yeah, just on city or cities. So yeah, that was one of the first ones that popped into my head, and I still just love putting David Bowie on the turntable.
Yeah.
It's like, even if it's a bad press, and there are a lot of them out there, he's just one of those dudes that kind of belongs on vinyl.
Now, his early stuff, before he really broke in, have you listened to much of that?
A little.
It's very much songwriter, storytelling.
Yeah, almost folky.
Yes, very folky.
Yeah, like we talked about, he was doing more folky stuff. And
trying to find his place.
yeah, and he was a meme.
Yeah.
Or a mime. And yeah, so I think you couldn't have looked at early David Bowie and looked at him as a record company executive or as just somebody who listens and go, well, this guy's going to be that guy that is never the same album after album. And although there are things that sound the same, Mick Ronson's guitars, some of the production in that, early to mid 70s stuff, there's a sonic quality that sounds the same, but David was never in one place for very long at all. And that's one of those things about him that is just so intriguing to me. I mean, I'm not a huge Madonna fan. There are some Madonna songs that I really, really liked. She is one of the only other artists I can think of that has just kind of been in so many places in her career.
Yeah, or somebody like, I guess a modern performer that comes to mind is Jack White.
Yeah.
Because Jack's tried on a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
And you can't pigeonhole him as one sound.
But like I said, Suffragette City, first song I thought of.
That's a good one.
Thanks, man.
Well, we're going to go hop in the boat.
Okay.
Or a plane.
You better get your sextant.
Yeah. I'll get it out.
Okay.
Hang on. Oh, we're already there. We're in California.
Beautiful.
So Everclear, a band from California, Sparkle and Fade.
Such a great record.
And this is not an easy record to find.
No.
And this is one that I was watching, and for whatever reason, the price dropped.
And you snagged it.
I snagged it.
Yeah.
So Santa Monica.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
It's a great album. I mean, I love the cover with these baby pictures of the guys in the band.
And they're a trio. There's a lot of bands I really like that happen to be trios.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about three guys making music. It just, I just dig that sound.
I do too. Especially this. This was, what year did this come out in? Was it 95?
Let's see. This came out in
95.
95.
Yep. December of 95. So just made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are one of those 90s bands, man, that just for some reason almost seemed like they came out of nowhere, but they're an iconic sounding band. And also, I think, one who in the middle of all of that stuff in the 90s managed to have a distinctive voice and sound overall. And that's hard to do in a sea of bands at that time. This looks really nice. This looks like a tip-on jacket.
Yeah.
Nice. What's the
gatefold?
Oh, it's another picture, and you got lyrics on each side.
Yeah, because in 95, I would suspect that this probably did not come out on vinyl. It was only a CD release. So
if it did, it would have been very, very minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is Intervention. I got an email from Intervention when this got re-released. So this is from 2015.
Yeah.
I remember getting an email from Intervention about restocking. I don't think when it came out I did, but about them restocking. And it just shot right up.
Yeah, it went up immediately. I mean, it was like above $50 forever.
It's crazy how the demand for that, because you think about it, it's folks my age, that want that because it either wasn't available or they weren't buying records at the time. But it's a great record. And, I was never a huge Everclear fan, but I do love that Santa Monica song. It's just,
They are the nicest guys in the world. We got to hang out with them at one of the X Fest backstage because we were shooting all these interviews.
yeah,
So Heidi, my wife, joined me, and we got to hang out with Art. And he was just they were really funny guys.
that's cool. That's
They had
always
funny
good to hear.
stories about touring in Indiana.
I can imagine. I love just the color
Yeah.
on the spine.
It's a big, thick, it's easy to find in
Yeah.
the collection.
Yeah. Yeah. Those, like this morning, we're doing a bunch of stuff around my house. And this morning it was early when I was going through and grabbing my records. I actually made a list yesterday. And so I had my phone with my flashlight on. Just my neighbors probably thought that somebody was like breaking in. But I love those ones that are identifiable like
Yeah.
that. If
Easy
it's
to
been said
find.
once, it's been said 100 times, but I do.
You're up.
So we did a little talking about
Oh,
this record
just a little.
in an episode called Led Zeppelin Ranked. And I can't remember. Do you remember what number we came up with for Physical Graffiti?
I'm going to say Physical
I think
Graffiti
it was four or
four or
five.
five.
Yeah, which I know that pained you.
Yeah, I wanted it a little higher.
Yeah, but we compromised, and
Yeah.
we're gonna do some more ranking lists. And we're gonna do our artists that don't have that many releases, like Bob Dylan, and so the 372nd record, I think, is anyway. I know the song Kashmir is like the highlight of this record.
Yeah.
It's kind of the highlight of the band. From a fan perspective, a lot of people would think that highlight is Stairway to Heaven, but I think in that episode you mentioned that Jimmy Page's favorite Zeppelin song is Kashmir.
Yeah.
And, that's why I brought it. And again, we don't need to belabor the subject. Everything about this record is awesome. It's, a double record. It's got the die cut things that you can change. And these deluxe editions have like a negative image of the album on the back to distinguish them from the other ones.
Oh, yeah. This is one I don't have as a deluxe yet.
Yeah, you need to get it. If you see it for a reasonable price, buy it, because these came out, I think, in 14 or 15. And, we weren't like neck deep in this thing then, but I knew that as soon as these started getting released, I'd be getting these deluxe editions. So Led Zeppelin's catalog, 10 albums, 10 albums. And there wasn't a lot of leftover extra stuff, but some of the extra stuff on this are like guide tracks. So there'll be like a guide track to Kashmir with no vocal in case you want to do your Robert Plant impression. But it's just a great album. It's a great snapshot of a band that's probably at the height of its popularity.
Yeah.
And I also love it because
It's big.
The
It's
size
easy
of the
to
spine
find.
is very heavy. And you know what? It's Friday night. After I prime and paint all the stuff I have to in my house tonight and wash my hands, I'm going to listen to Physical Graffiti.
Ooh, that's a good Friday night.
It is. There may be other things involved. What's your next one?
That's okay. All right, next on the hit parade, Wilco, Summer Teeth. And the reason this album is here, Wilco is a Chicago band, and of course, at the end of
Or at the beginning of side C.
beginning of the second record, Via Chicago. So they constantly, last year or maybe 2 years ago, they did a kind of a residency in Chicago, and they had a pop-up store where you could buy even Wheaties that were like Wilco-E's. They had all kinds of stuff in there.
Your daughter got you some stuff, right?
I think she did. She got me like an album or something.
That's cool.
from the pop-up store. But yeah, it's that. It's neat to find a band who is really cognizant of where they're from, and they pay homage to it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do shows in Chicago all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll do week-long shows at one club,
Yep.
and the tickets are gone instantly.
Yeah, that is cool when a community can kind of rally around a band, and you feel that sense of community through that band. And you know, Jeff Tweedy, aside from being, you know, a very talented songwriter and artist, just, you know, someone who has always kept those roots planted there, and I think that's great.
And they're just. Wilco's one of those bands that people follow around like the Grateful Dead.
I know, it's crazy.
And a lot of their songs end up in films about or series about Chicago. Like The Bear has tons of Wilco songs in them.
The Bear's a good show.
Yeah,
for sure. So this is also
a gatefold.
a gatefold, and this is a heavy duty bitch.
Oh
right
yeah.
here. Kind of have this artsy, out of focus shot on the right, and then the dudes here on the left.
Yeah, I don't know if these are, they're thick records.
This feels like a really, like, well put together package.
Yeah, all their stuff winds up being, I mean they have a lot of dual album packages.
We may have to do a nice package volume 2 show.
We should.
I just like that. A lot of times you have these gatefolds, these double records, and they're very flimsy, but this is like very thick stock, and it's, you can tell that there's some real quality there. It's None Such Records, I think. Right? Yeah. Yep. None Such, you're doing good work there. I'm sure not all the releases are this nice, but...
All right, I'm back now. Came out in 99.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And you can get a lot of Wilco stuff on their website. That's one thing we don't talk much about. But if you really follow a band, you love everything by the band, go to their website. I mean, the band gets more money from those sales than anything.
Yep.
And you can get a lot of the super collectible stuff on a band's website.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And autographed stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, collectible color variants. I mean, a lot of the bands like these dudes do stuff like that. They're trying to drive that traffic to their site and obviously make as much as they can from the sales. Because, you know, most of the time anymore, these bands are in business to tour. They're not necessarily selling a lot of music or making much music from streaming. So,
yeah. So it's support the bands, go to their websites and buy stuff. Even if it's a couple dollars more, hey, you're helping out your favorite band.
Yeah, your local Chicago.
Yes.
Good guys. That's an excellent one, man.
This was their third release.
You don't say.
You don't say, Mr. Wheeler. Their third release, and it's heavy.
Yeah, that's a good one, man.
You're up.
All right. So we're gonna just go across the lake to Detroit Rock City. So I get a 2 for here because they say Detroit and they say city.
Ooh, yeah.
How about that?
I knew you would have this one.
Oh, you know,
you had to.
Yeah, but you know, you think about it. I don't talk about Kiss that much. As much of their stuff as I have.
I probably talked about them more than you.
Maybe, which is ironic. But I don't talk about them a lot because people that know me know I love Kiss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that, you know, Keith knows that I love the Jayhawks. And there were a couple of years there where he and I were going to a lot of shows and listening to a lot of the music and playing the music on our acoustic guitars. I don't want to belabor an artist or a band. Now, that being said, this is Kiss's Destroyer. And this album is pretty much their defining album in most people's eyes. Not in mine. It's certainly not my favorite Kiss record. But as a song, as a standalone song, Detroit Rock City, fantastic. As an album opener, just absolutely fantastic. It sets that stage. If you hear this, there's sound effects and stuff at the beginning and at the end and through it. And there's a lot going on in it. And, King Kelly did the cover painting. Bob Ezrin produced this record, and this is the guys playing. This is these four dudes playing on this. And apparently he just whipped them into shape, rehearsing and making sure they could play really, really well. And you hear it on a song like Detroit Rock City. It's an iconic song for the band. It's a twofer for us. And, I was like conflicted because I'm like, do I just go grab the easy one?
You got to have that one.
Yeah, I got to.
I'm glad you did.
And
it's a top 100 album art cover.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that album art, that is who the band is.
Yeah, that's iconic.
I mean, when you think of Kiss, you think of this cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's, other part of the painting on the back. I always loved the fact that you had the Gibson and Pearl logos on their records because, Peter played Pearl and Ace played Gibson. I think Paul did too for a while, but Paul went back and forth. But it's an iconic record, and, they're in a couple weeks, they're supposed to be playing their last show at Madison Square Garden. I do not believe that for one moment.
But
nobody has ever done. But yeah, Kiss, Destroyer. If you want my recommendations on where to jump in with Kiss, hop on our socials and we can have a little discussion. I might maybe you could do some album art reviews with some Kiss albums.
Oh, there's a lot to talk about there. And do I have one more?
Yes.
One more. All right, so I wanted to keep this one kind of fun.
Oh my God.
So
yes,
the jazz soul of Little Stevie. This is Little Stevie Wonder in the wee years. And Stevie has a brilliant song called Manhattan at 6.
Cool. I don't know that I know that song.
I wouldn't know it right away, but I mean, you're going to know it as soon as he starts singing. Because this album kicks off with Fingertips, which is a legendary Stevie Wonder song. And I mean, I don't know that there's a bunch of well-known Stevie Wonder songs on this because this is early in his career. I mean, this is very early. This album came out in 1963.
And he was what? Like,
it probably says in the liner.
11-year-old.
He was 11?
11-year-olds. Well, Little Stevie Wonder, the 11-year-old sightless musical prodigy of Tamla Records, is destined for great success, says Barry Gordy Jr., president of Motown Tamla Recording Company. Yep.
That's amazing.
Amazingly talented dude. Just, and still around. That's the thing that I think that we take for granted a lot is we still have some of these artists like Keith and I were talking about when the new old Beatles song came out. It's like, it's almost like their recorded music from almost 60 years ago is similar to that of like Mozart and Beethoven and, all of these guys, except these dudes are still alive. They're still among us, they're still touring.
Yeah.
They're still putting new music out individually. Stevie is too. He's never quit.
No.
And the crazy thing about him is he was one of those first dudes that like played all of his instruments on his albums. I don't think when he first started he did.
Yeah.
But as he got older, he produced his albums, he wrote them, he played all the instruments. It's just great. There's a thing on YouTube out there of his individual drum track from Superstition.
Nice.
You should check it out.
I love how this is marketed.
Yes.
The jazz soul. It's like they couldn't figure out quite how to market Stevie.
Right.
He's like, is he jazz?
Yeah.
Is he soul?
Very Ray Charles feeling.
Yeah, very. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was in the early days of Motown. It's 63.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because they mentioned Tamla Records.
Yeah.
I think Tamla was much bigger early on than they were later. And this is also a cutout.
Yes.
So he's just one of my favorites. He doesn't disappoint ever.
No.
And, what an amazing story for a young kid who is blind to have this many gifts to share with everybody. That's really cool. I don't see that a lot.
I got this back in, my early record collecting days, and I'm like, I got to have this. I love the cover.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
You're next.
Well, I talked about the top 2 cities that songs, albums, whatever, are named after: New York and London. And I know I've talked about Brutal Youth before. Elvis Costello's Brutal Youth. The highlight song on here is London's Brilliant Parade, where it's kind of like a 3.5-minute story song about like his childhood growing up in London. And it's fantastic. This whole album to me was my deep dive into Elvis Costello. We got it in at the record store I worked at, and I just played it all the time. I think my coworkers wanted to strangle me. This just came out last year. A bunch of
on MOV.
Yeah, on MOV. A bunch of his albums from this era they released last year on MOV, and it is just fantastic. I love this photo of him on the back with the guitar. Yeah, everything on here is great. For a while they said that this was his like last loud album because he kind of veered off into some other things, but the guitars are plugged in here. The band is fantastic, and you can see
it's
the
easy to
spine
find in the collection.
Yeah, red and white. And I love this old picture of him and one of his buddies when he was growing up on the front. It's just so cool. So, Elvis Costello has so many. I call him a genre jumper because he's, worked with Alan Toussaint and done classical stuff. He learned how to read music, like 25 years ago. He had some hits with Paul McCartney. I mean, he is unafraid of jumping into anything. And, when you get to a certain point in your career, you can do that. Not everybody is afforded that
right away.
Ability right away. So, but everything, I am one of those folks that is a fan of all things Elvis Costello, and I couldn't not mention that song. If you haven't heard it, go give it a listen.
Very Bowie-esque.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I'm going to try this.
Yeah. And, very kind of distinctly British too.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily hear it in his singing, but the attitude, the sarcasm in his lyrics and stuff, he is definitely an eccentric kind of British artist. And there aren't a lot of folks like that are still around.
No.
I mean, he started in 1977 and he's still going strong. So
that's a good one.
Speaking of still going strong, our YouTube page, it just keeps the list just keeps growing, doesn't it?
It keeps growing. We've got a lot of material.
A lot of video snacks, a lot of unboxings. What else are we doing? You're doing your album art reviews, which are taking the country by storm from what I hear.
They're interesting.
Yeah. But we are putting out more and more material for all of you guys to check out. And I know that we sound like a broken record.
Bingo.
But we need you guys to participate with us on the YouTube page. We want you to be on our Facebook, Instagram pages. Any of the socials, reach out to us. Tell us what you think. Tell us about your favorite songs about cities, towns, or other places, because, you know, I love when we do these shows and we get a couple of those comments, because we can kind of go back and forth and compare lists and stuff. But we want you guys to continue to do that with us all the time. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because basically that channel is the center of the Vinyl Ventures universe. Our podcast emanates from our YouTube channel. So please go to our YouTube page, make suggestions, tell us what you want to hear, what you want to see, even share what you don't want to see.
Yeah. Oh, you guys do that too much. Tell us.
Yeah, we need feedback like that. So we're counting on all you guys to do that. What else, John? Show ideas. We've had a few of those throughout today's show.
Yeah. Any sort of, you can share your list with us. If you have city and town lists, share them with us.
If you want, get your iPhone out and do a video of it. And, we can trade back and forth that way. John and I don't do a lot of videos from home, and we need to do that more, because I kind of like to see people in their natural habitat, in the state or in the place where they sink into the chair or the love seat or the sofa and listen to these records.
You're getting deep here.
I am. I love it. There's so much that tells you about folks, and I'll tell you what, we'll make it a point to do that from home more often for the rest of you. But it's been great talking about cities and towns and other places and things, right?
Yeah, and we know we left Boston off, but we've talked a lot about Boston, so it was kind of done on purpose.
Yeah. I intentionally didn't go to that one. It's just not hard to flip through your records and find places and cities and towns.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do, but we challenge you guys to take a look at yours and do that yourself. For Wheels, I'm Jay, and we'll catch you all the next time around.